you just don't know what to expect. So every day it kind of stresses you out a little bit. And it just seems so much because injections are just a little scary. We were having a lot of fun, and then in the night we're like, oh my god, we have to take the medication. Kaushik rewatched all the videos again, and then we administered it. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So clearly you can see I'm in a different room today. Usually I shoot all my videos in the nursery. Today I'm shooting it in the guest bedroom. So the nursery used to be my office, and now Nishka has taken over. So I have actually moved my working table to the guest bedroom, and this is where I take my calls and everything. And since Nishka is sleeping in the nursery, I thought, let me shoot it here. So in the last video, you saw how I prepped for the IVF process. Before that, you guys saw, my start to the IVF process and why we chose to do IVF process. And like I said, I'm going to make short videos, a couple of them, to kind of take you through the entire process. And the reason I'm going to divide it into a couple of videos is because there's just so much of information. It can get so overwhelming that it's just better for me to kind of make shorter videos so that you guys kind of know how my journey went. So in today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the start of IVF, the injection process, and how we were in the mental and physical state when we actually went through all of it. I really want to take Kaushik's take on this as well, so hopefully in the next video I can get him to share his thoughts on it. But in today's video, I'm going to kind of show you clips of how the injections went and how physically and mentally I kind of did in the entire process and talk through it. So to begin with, the entire process, when you actually go through the orientation and you sit with your RE and you talk about the IVF process, it just sounds a lot. People just think, oh, it's just IVF. But there's so many stages to it, and there are so many things that goes into it that it makes the process very scary, sounds very scary, very unpredictable, and it just, you just don't know what to expect. So every day it kind of, stresses you out a little bit. But anyway, our doctor was really sweet and really nice, and she said, hey Nupur, we can't predict the process, but we'll try and make the journey more comfortable for you and try and control as much as we can. Because she was so nice, that was the first step that kind of gave us a little bit of solace and made us feel positive about the whole journey. So getting a good team of doctors is so important and critical to this whole process. And then she took us through the orientation, and we went through all the medications that I had to take, and she also explained to us why we had to take certain medications. Now, before I started my injections, I was put on contraceptives for a while so that they could naturally suppress my natural ovulation so that they can control the entire process. Now, your body naturally produces eggs every month, and in the IVF process, the idea and the goal is to produce as many eggs as possible. Like kind of push your body a little bit to its limit and produce as many eggs as possible. So the first step was to suppress my natural ovulation through contraceptives. Once that was done, I started my medication. Now, there are a bunch of medications that can be used in the IVF process. Again, it really is case to case dependent. So depending on your body, your conditions, your situations, your goals of IVF, there are so many factors that go into deciding what medications you're going to take. So in my case, I think we took Gonalef, Menopur, Cetrotide, and then I think we took another medicine for the trigger. So there were a couple, and I'm not going to go into the detail of what kind of medication, just because it varies person to person. Like I have had friends who've gone through IVF process, their medication has been completely different from my protocol and medication. So I'm not going to go into that. But what's important to know that, there are different medications recommended by doctors. Sometimes what happens is that certain medications may not suit you in the first cycle, so they kind of change it up. They change the dosage in the second cycle. So the dosage and the kind of medication, the frequency of the medication, everything can vary. So again, case to case basis. So in my cycle, they recommended me certain medication, and it just seems so much because injections are just a little scary. So they actually send you videos, you have an online training, a nurse meets you virtually, and she kind of showed me and Kaushik how each injection is administered in a different manner. So it's very, very important if you're going through the IVF process, one, learn how to give the injections, two, make sure you don't miss your timing and frequency, because that's very, very critical. In the entire IVF process, everything is timed, everything has to work according to certain timing. So it's very important, because you're spending so much money, time and effort, that you do not miss your medication, your dosage or timing. And in case you do, make sure you immediately check with your RE or your team on what you should be doing next. So we went through a couple of training process for a few days, and Kaushik went through it. I was too scared to give myself medication. So Kaushik kind of sat through and learned everything, and then we made our timing as to what time we would like to give our medication. A lot of the medication needs to be put in the fridge, so you also have to be mindful if you're going out, you might want to carry it in a freezer bag and things like that. Now the first day, I remember when we took the medication, we were in a hotel, we were celebrating my birthday, we were having a lot of fun, and then in the night we were like, oh my god, we have to take the medication. Kaushik rewatched all the videos again, and then we administered it. And the whole process takes a couple of weeks. So the first few days, I think it was okay. But after a point, because you're taking the medication on the same area, after a while you tend to get sore. And in that case, you should definitely ask your team what to do. In my case, we would just rub it a little bit to make sure there's no redness, no soreness. And it can be painful. Again, everybody's pain threshold in the IVF process is very, very different. So it's important you assess yours. And if there are issues, ask your team how you can elevate the pain. Just remember, every problem has a solution. And if you're going through something that is difficult, ask for help. I think that's the biggest thing I learned in my entire IVF pregnancy journey, is that there is no harm asking for help, championing yourself, advocating for yourself. If there are any issues you're going through, ask those questions. So I asked a lot of questions in my process, in my IVF process. Why we're doing this, why we're taking certain medication, if I'm going through pain, how I can elevate it. So I had to know every aspect of the process I was going through to be able to go through the process better. Now, the other challenging part is that when we were going through the IVF process, we hadn't shared this information with a lot of people, because we weren't sure how the process is going to be. There was a lot of unpredictability. Like I said, only a close set of friends and family knew about it. When we used to go out, I have to step out to take the injection because you cannot miss your dosage. Those things were a little bit of challenging. So we used to kind of plan all our outing according to the whole process. But overall, it was easier than what I had anticipated. Except for a little bit of hormonal changes. I think there's so many hormones being injected into your body that your emotions have a little bit of up and down. And that's something it's very important to speak to your partner, your spouse, have them understand that this process can be a little bit, challenging in terms of managing emotions. Our doctor spoke to Kaushik, and, we knew exactly what we were getting into. So there were certain days, I felt extra emotional, I felt extra happy, extra sad. So I had those ups and downs, but it wasn't extreme. It was still, because I knew about it, I could manage it better. So that's something to keep in mind, because every person reacts very differently to these injections. And it's important to, again, like I said, ask questions, advocate for yourself. If you're feeling something throughout the process, make sure you voice it out, speak to your team. That's very, very critical. And the whole point of my video all comes down to this little thing, is that, the process of IVF has many aspects to it: physical, mental, emotional. So constantly ask questions and advocate for yourself, because there will be a lot of things that will come up that you may not expect in the process. And hopefully some of these candid clips that I've added has given you a glimpse of how this process went for us. And in my next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the trigger shot and the whole IVF retrieval process and how it went. Now, as you're going through this whole injection process, you still have to go for your daily appointments, and they keep monitoring your follicles every single day, because the whole idea of taking these injections is to pump your body to grow more follicles than you would not naturally do in a normal ovulation cycle. So every day they will monitor your ovulation process, your follicles, and the size of it. Now, there is a certain point that the doctor will decide, oh, it's probably the right time to retrieve these follicles. So each follicle needs to be a certain size for them to retrieve it. Now, there's so many follicles growing, right? So if it's beyond a certain size, it will burst. And if it's too small, it will not mature properly. So it's very critical that your team monitors you regularly to ensure that you can get as many follicles as possible in the right frame and right size. So that's a little tricky, right? Because, you know, on a certain day, you will probably see like 10 follicles, but they may all not be the right size. But then if you wait for another day, some of the follicles may burst, mature, and they are not viable anymore. But if you do it too early, you may not get the right amount. So again, the timing is very critical. So I was going for my constant monitoring, and then my doctor decided at a certain day that this was the right time to retrieve it. We had the number of follicles we kind of aiming for at the right size. And you know, a lot of times when you retrieve your eggs, you may have more or less for eggs than you kind of, you know, see in your ultrasound, because each follicle, you know, can have 1 or 2 eggs, or the eggs may not just be viable when you kind of retrieve it. So the number you see on your ultrasound before your retrieval could vary when you actually retrieve it. But again, depends on your doctor and their experience. And you know, we decided a date when we thought was best for my follicles to be retrieved, and so we set that date. Again, I was very stressed about it. I didn't know how many eggs to expect, because egg retrieval just one the first part. You know, after that there's a whole process which I will talk in my next video. But this video was just to kind of share a little bit about the whole injection and how you kind of prep for the whole egg retrieval process. In my next video, I will talk a little bit about the trigger shot and the whole retrieval process itself, and you know, how the experience of my egg retrieval was. So that kind of gives you an idea on what to expect if you are going through this process. I hope this video was useful. Again, when I went through the IVF journey, I didn't know a lot of people who were going through, especially in the South Asian community, because it's such a taboo topic, right? So when I would look for videos on YouTube, I didn't find many South Asians sharing about their journey. And even though I know that a lot of them have gone through. So it was very critical for me that, you know, I wanted to share this experience so that somebody else doesn't feel so isolated in the process. And luckily my family and Kaushik, everybody was supportive of it. So I hope this video is useful. I'll see you in my next video where I'll talk a little bit about the egg retrieval and my trigger shot and how that process went. So I'll see you next time. Till then, lots of love.